Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
You know, Triple A, I was talking to somebody the other day and they kept saying, well, when I get to retirement, what is retirement? I don't, at retirement, when I get there, and they kept having a hard time saying what retirement was, or they didn't really understand it. And I said, hold on a second, hold on. There's nothing magical that happens at a certain age that lets you retire other than Social Security, right? That's pretty magical. But other than Social Security, there's nothing magical that happens unless you have a pension. What happens is you've built up enough wealth in your 401k or wherever that may be, and now your assets start paying you. Instead of you saving money and working for your money, now your money is working for you and it pays you. I'm Daniel Agemy.
And I'm Andrew Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic is 401k brain to retirement brain. Live off your wealth, not on it. Daniel, I love that title. And that's kind of what I think people are saying is, you know, what's magical at retirement is that they need to change. They need to pivot from receiving a paycheck from their company to their assets sending them a paycheck. And that's the difference.
What? Yeah, but why is that so hard? It's so hard, especially for financial professionals, people who are in our business.
Right.
To get, they come up with all these complicated ways of engineering income or complicated ways of selling down your assets in order to create income. You even put it into AI, and AI has such a hard time of thinking about living off dividends and interest, because the financial world, where it pulls all of it, where it's done all of its training, doesn't talk about generating income, things that pay you so you can live off the dividends and interest, ideally leaving your entire nest egg intact.
Exactly. That's the idea. That's why we're saying live off your wealth, not on your wealth. And I got to say it, Daniel, you know, I'm always talking about, right? You know, the chickens and the eggs, right? And what most people do is they have roosters, which is fine when you're growing your portfolio. But, you know, if you retire with roosters, you got to kill a rooster and you might run out of roosters. You know what the lady said yesterday, Daniel? She said, and roosters don't taste very good. But if you buy chickens and they lay eggs and you only eat the eggs and you have a renewable resource, who would not want a renewable resource in their retirement? Well, people that don't know what they don't know and don't care to know what they don't know, people that think they have a better way of doing it, that have never been there before, as opposed to somebody that's got decades of experience helping people retire and stay retired. So,
yeah.
You know,
or just people that are following old ways of doing things.
Right.
And when I say old, I don't mean 100-year-old, 200-year-old ways. What I mean is the last, you know, since the 70s or since the 60s, the 80s, the 80s, really the 80s. Right. And when 401ks kind of started being a thing instead of pension, it changed the way people invest, and it pushed people to momentum investing on purpose or accident. It pushed people to momentum investing. And 401ks, S&P 500, all of that, it's just momentum. It's money comes in, therefore assets must go up. And as long as that continues, it'll work. But as we've seen throughout hundreds of years of stock markets, that doesn't continue. The same thing doesn't continue. The same market doesn't continue forever to be the best market. It switches and things change. But what we can see is that getting paid works. It always has worked. Maybe there is some time in 0% interest rate environment where it was difficult and you had to be a real specialist to make it work. So just anybody couldn't do it. But when we look back hundreds of years, it always works.
Right. And Daniel, and that's the thing, when you were saying the 60s, the 70s, and I said, no, the 80s, because the 50s, 60s, and 70s, when we were going through a bearish market in this country, that's people did this kind of thing, right? The greatest generation knew how to live off their interest, not their principal. Now, some of those taught this, the baby boomers and such, that, or told them that, but a lot didn't. Today, it's amazing how many people, baby boomers, I asked today, have you ever heard live off the interest, not off the principal? And they haven't. And the reason why they haven't is because for the past 2-3 decades, interest rates haven't been where they could. But you go back, to the 80s, to the late 70s, early 80s, and interest rates were 18% that you could get on a CD. Well, those people were investing in that. And then, their children don't know about it. And that's why we're trying to do this. Daniel, again, I talked with somebody recently, and, one of our radio show listeners from Colorado. And, I loved talking with her because she was telling me what we say. She wasn't using our words. It was coming from her heart. But I was just like, I was getting so excited. I said, you got the idea? That's what we do for people. She said, this is what I think. And that's exactly how we think. But it's not the typical, because most people have 401k brain. And
401k brain.
401k brain. And so because of that, we have a white paper we put together today to be able to give to our listening audience about generating more dependable passive income streams. Passive income, living off the interest, not off the principal. We love to put this in your hand for free by calling us at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for your free copy of Passive Income Streams. Ask for it by name, Passive Income Streams, 800-725-7616. You're listening to Financial Strategies because people don't know, with Daniel and Andrew Agemy. Today we're talking about 401k brain to retirement brain. Live off your wealth, not on it. Daniel, this is, when I think about that, the switch that goes on here, it's like the switch that is a natural switch, right? When you were 18, 19 years old and your brother's 18, 19, 20 years old, you didn't say, Dad, I want to go to our pediatrician. And you said, now it's time, I need a physical. I'm going to go to a general practitioner, right? Not my pediatrician. Why? Because you're in a different part of life. And that's the same thing. When people hit retirement, they're in a different part. What you do in retirement is different than pre-retirement. And that's what we're going to be talking about, real soon here. And, I'm getting real excited for what we're talking about that evil twin, right? Dollar cost averaging and an evil twin, So hang on if in our listening audience for that. But before we get to that point, I love the idea of a paycheck. And Wall Street, most people out there in our business, Daniel, are Wall Street oriented people. And the reason for that is because Wall Street makes money if the market goes up, if the market goes down, if the market goes sideways. But most of our listeners, if they're invested in the market,
and because they're in charge of the education, AAA.
Right.
They're in charge of the education of the advisors, or the propaganda, if you want to call it that, right?
That's right.
So even some of these
club.
Of these firms that people think are wholesome and nonprofits and wonderful,
right?
They're pushing the same stuff.
Exactly.
And you know what one of the craziest things is, AAA? A lot of the back data where people say S&P always goes up. Just put your money in S&P. Just put your money in the markets. It always goes up. A lot of the information that is based off of, when you look at charts and things like that, we don't have much accurate information since the 70s and really the 90s, because that's really when it started recording electronically. It's a lot of made up information, and there's a lot of biases that get put in there. Like if you've heard of survivorship bias, right? So they look at the companies that survived. So when they're compiling a lot of this information, it's not even accurate information. So when people look at these 100-year charts and whatnot, part of it's made up.
Right.
So we talk about a lot of times 9% over 150 years, but it's actually not that good, because a lot of that information is based off of back data that use survivorship biases. To make it really simple, we could get into the technical details, but to make it really simple, it's used off of survivorship bias.
Okay, Daniel. So here, I'm going to make it even simpler than that.
Okay.
Figures don't lie, but liars figure. Right. And Wall Street has really figured out how to do that, right? Because they'll say, oh, the market always goes up. Well, it doesn't for people who are in retirement necessarily. It may, right? But it may not, right? Like if somebody retired in 1999, and in 2000, the market went up, but then the market didn't go up again from where it was in 2000 for 13 years and stay above that for 13 years. So if you had $100,000, all things being equal, you had $100,000 in the market in 2000. In 2013, you still had $100,000. Crazy.
Which is not acceptable. It's not acceptable
not at all.
for us. It's not acceptable for our clients. But a lot of people think that's acceptable because what do you hear? Well, that's what the market did. That's what everybody did.
Yeah,
that's what
not
everybody
our clients.
did.
Not our
and
clients.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work if you're in retirement and you need that paycheck because you have two options at that point.
Yeah.
Option number one is you spend down your principal, you run out of money. Option number two is you don't take any money out of your portfolio and you put retirement on hold. And I don't like either of those options. So what do? We play a different game. We don't play the Wall Street game, right? We play the pay me, turn your investment, your assets into producing or productive assets, things that pay you.
Right. I love the comment we got from the radio show listener. It said, I want to buy chicken so I can get the eggs. Right. And that's the point. We make money, but we don't. Wall Street knows about this stuff, but they don't talk about it because they don't make as much money as what being in the stock market kind of thing. And I'm not against the stock market. I'm just use it for the right reasons. Once you get your purpose taken care of as far as making sure your retirement is sound and solid, well, then you have extra money. Well, then you can go gamble it in the stock market or put it in the stock market. And ideally, you put it in good stuff, like some of the stuff that you picked that's been done 10 times stuff, So thank you very much, for what you've done with my portfolio. And, the same lady the other day, she said, Andrew, I want to know, is your money invested the same way as what you guys talk about on the radio? And are you in the same, computer software and cloud-based systems as your clients are? And I said, yes, very much so. I'm in the same stuff. I'm consistent. I practice what I preach. I'm not trying to do what other people do. I am my age and I am my own target market. From that standpoint. So I do what is best for my clients. And it's worked out really great for those clients that are my age because they went through it when I was more into the growth model. And then as we all both gotten older, we've gone into the income model. So it's been pretty cool. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is 401k brain to retirement brain. Live off your wealth, not on your wealth. Right on. All right. So with that, we've got a video book that we'd love to be able to put in here. This is an animated book. It's got 3 different tracks to it that has different animated videos for you to be able to enjoy to educate you further on these topics. Because, we are so involved in trying to educate people to make smart decisions. And we know if we help and educate enough people in that, well, maybe a few of them will allow us to help them with their problems themselves. But we want to educate you to be able to make smart decisions. Call for the video book now. Ask by name, video book, 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616, or check us out on the web, agemy.com, AGEMY.com, and you can also ask for it there. And Daniel, I'm looking forward to dollar cost averaging versus its evil twin. We'll be right back.
Time for some tough questions for these financial advisors. What makes Retirement Income Source different from other financial?
Our extensive experience generating investment income quickly so you can have financial peace of mind, navigate your retirement smoothly, and have more time to spend with family and doing the things you love.
We gotta talk to these guys. We're done here.
This is Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
Dollar cost averaging versus its evil twin. Reverse dollar cost averaging. Ooh, this is like, Daniel, this is like when a tube of toothpaste squeezes out, nice, right? But try to get that sucker back in there. You're not doing it, right? Or, some things work good in one direction, but not in the other. You comb your hair in one direction, it doesn't look so good to comb it the other direction, right? I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy. And you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about 401k brain. AAA, what's the difference between 401k brain and retirement brain? That's what we're trying to show today, right?
Yeah, well, the 401k brain is, hey, how can I make as much money as I can get? It's like going up the mountain of retirement in a 2-seater sports car. Ooh, convertible even. Cool, fun, up, down, sideways, around those curves, that wind blowing through your hair, a lot of excitement, right? Not a lot to lose, but when you get to the top of the mountain and it becomes more snow-capped covered mountain, you want to put that roof up, and then you go up further, you see you're really high up, and do you really want to be in that 2-seater sports car, or would you rather be an all-wheel drive SUV driven by a professional driver? Well, the difference is one is accumulating, building. The other is distributing and making sure that you're able to take it out. And distributing happens in retirement, and distributing also happens when you die, right? To the next generation or whatever the case may be. So distribution happens in both, and you need to be prepared for both. You can't be doing what you've always done with the 401k brain. Doesn't work as well with as the others. So that's the same way with dollar cost averaging. It works great when you're building your money.
What is dollar cost averaging, Andrew?
Well, that dollar cost averaging is what a lot of people do. A lot of people understand this, but you put your paycheck in, and you get your paycheck and you put $100 in your 401k. And maybe you buy 10 shares because it's $10 a share. And then the next paycheck, you put another $100 in, but maybe now it's, $8 a share, right? So you're buying more than 10 shares. And then eventually it gets down to $5 a share, and you're putting your $100 in. Now you're buying 20 shares with that $100. So that works pretty good, because when the stock market comes back up to $10 a share, well, you're making some money.
So investing the same amount of money in the same amount of intervals for a period of time, and it smooths out your averages. And this has been proven to work very, very well over long periods of time.
And that's how most people have built their wealth in retirement. A lot of people will say, I didn't look at my retirement in 2002 when the market dropped, in 2008 and 2009 when the market dropped. And now look how much I have. I have $1 million. Well, that's because of dollar cost averaging. You kept putting the paycheck in. Well, when you retire, you're not putting the paycheck in. You're actually taking it out. And that's the evil twin. So how good it worked for you when you're saving money is going to work against you and take your money on bringing it out the other side. So, let me say it like this, right? Let's just say you put $100 in the stock market in 2000. You bought 10 shares. You put another $100 in 2002. You buy 20 shares. Now you got 30 shares that you paid $200 for. And a few years later, the market is back up, and that is no longer $5 a share, it's $10 a share, and you have 30 shares. So you have $300. Not bad, considering you put in 200, and now you got 300. But unfortunately, it was 5 years that it took to do that. But still, that's 50%, which is about 7% a year. That's not bad. But if you do it the other direction, that's where the problem comes in, right? Whereas if you have $1,000 and you take out $100, you take out 10 shares. 2002, you take out another $100, it's $5 a share, you take out 20 shares. So you took out 30 shares. You wait until 2007 to take out another, to do it, to reevaluate it, it's $10 a share. But your $1,000, you took out $200, but your $1,000 is now only worth $700. Because you lost more because of reverse dollar cost averaging. Ouch.
So, AAA, you hurt my brain. There's so many.
It works better with the illustration.
So it's like,
I know.
It's like this, right? So in 2000, from your example, you start a job and you start pumping money away. You don't have a lot of money in there. There's not much money in your 401k. You just started the job, but you're putting out every paycheck. And so your $5,000 turned into $2,500. It cut in half. You don't care. You lost $2,500. Big deal. But you're buying. Now we roll around to 2013 and it's worth your 401k is worth $150,000. That feels pretty good. Yeah. Look at all this money you have.
All right.
Now we're today and your 401k is worth about $500,000.
Okay.
That feels pretty good.
Oh, real good.
But now if it cuts in half, that's real money. That's real money. So
that's
another reason why people look at changing models, right? That's why people look at changing from the accumulation, as you're saying, or the driving up in a 2-seater sports car. Mm-hmm. My friend did that. And I think a lot of people probably think that's cool when you're talking about it. They're like, I would drive down the mountain in the 2-seater sport car. I've got a lot of our car people out there saying, Andrew, I would love doing that. I had a friend who did that in a Camaro. And he got stuck in the mountain because the car, he couldn't even make it up to the top of the mountain because by the time he got close, the car just started going sideways and he had to roll back down the mountain because it's real stuff. Right. It's real out there when you're in an environment you don't know and a storm comes in. It's real when you're not prepared for that.
Exactly. And, that's why we're talking to people, right? You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic is 401k brain to retirement brain. Live off your wealth, not on it. And so today we have a book that we love to be able to put in your hands today, and it's called Return on Principle by David Scranton, CLU, CHFC, and a bunch of other alphabet soup there. He's got his master's in financial services, and David has done a great job of putting together 7 core values to help protect your money in good times and bad. And we thought this would go along well because it would help educate you further in switching and in understanding the difference between a 401k brain and a retirement brain. And this is an easy read book. We'd love to put it in your hand for free by calling us at 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616 for your free copy of Return on Principle by David Scranton. You're listening to Financial Strategies. And today's topic, 401k brain to retirement brain. Daniel, this dollar cost averaging versus its evil twin, reverse dollar cost averaging, this retirement, and this is a trap that people fall into, that they think that, hey, I'll be okay. I'll just keep doing the same old, and I'll get different results, right? That's the definition of insanity, right? But it could cannibalize people's money. And it happens little by little, then all of a sudden. Right. And they don't know it. And that's how people run out of money before they run out of life. Retirees' greatest fear is running out of money before they run out of life. And how they do this because they don't change strategies soon enough. And unfortunately, so many times I've seen too many people want to change too late. And there's nothing they can do.
That's what Hemingway said. How do you go bankrupt? It happens slowly and then all at once, right?
Right.
Okay. So this evil twin, AAA, I think that a good example of this, you mentioned the toothpaste thing, but I think there's a scarier example. And that is when you drive out of the airport, you rented the car, you drive out of the airport, you drive over those things that go down with your tires. But if you backed up over that, it would destroy your car, it would destroy your tires. Right. This is a good way to destroy your retirement. The evil twin of dollar cost averaging. We explained how good dollar cost averaging works when you're packing money away. Mm-hmm. But the evil twin or the trap you just mentioned is when you start pulling it out. And I've heard lots of people in your educational events say things like, you talk about people running out of the money, and they always say things like in the audience, well, all you had to do was hold till today. Markets are up so much higher than they were in 2009. Just hold. Right. And I hear people say things like, you must have been an idiot to sell anything in 2009. You had people come into the office 2009, 2010 who wanted second opinions because they had lost so much money. And they said, Andrew, just get me out of the markets. So there's a big difference between looking at a chart and seeing a dip and watching your money cut in half. AAA.
Right. That's right. That's right. And when you start accumulating bigger money, that's where the problems come in. And time is not on your side. When you're hitting in or close to retirement, time's not on your side. Time is behind you at that point. And that's a huge thing that people forget. Now, if you have non-IRA money that you're holding and trying to grow for the children's sake, fine. That's a different thing, right? Because you got another 20, 30 years before they're going to inherit it. That's fine. But if you have IRA, 401k money, anything like that, well, at age, depending what what year you're born, between 73, 75 years old, you're going to have what's called the required minimum distribution. The minimum amount you have to take out every year out of your 401k, IRA, whether you need it or not, because the government wants the tax money. And when you first start, it's going to be around 4%. But within the next 10 to 15 years, it's going to boost up to 9%. It's going to double the percentage. And if your portfolio keeps growing, well, that's going to be huge numbers that you have to take out. But the thing is that even when your portfolio goes down, you still have to take it out. And that's where this can help hurt.
AAA, let's go through some real world examples to give people an idea, because we can say all we want about RMDs and we can say all we want about the evil twin of dollar cost averaging.
Yeah, right.
But if markets have done since 1999, if they've done 8-9% a year, it would be impossible to run out of money between 1999 and today. If markets have done, if you got $1 million portfolio and markets have done 9% over
every year, right?
And you took $60,000 a year. That's only 6% of the $1 million a year out. It's impossible to run out, right?
If it's a steady 9%, but the problem is the market doesn't do steady 9%. And so let's tell the people how that works. You listen to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is 401k brain versus retirement brain. And what we have for you today is we have an opportunity to get a second opinion. A second opinion, or what I call a financial MRI on your accounts, on your money, to be able to see what's happening to it. If you'd like to be able to discuss that and find out more about that, call us at 800-725-7616 to talk about how you can have a second opinion or a free financial MRI. Call us now, 800-725-7616.
Do you have any questions for me about retirement income source?
I just want to make sure I can invest well enough to have enough income, enjoy my retirement.
We build a custom retirement plan based around your income and goals.
How do I know I can trust you?
Building trust does take time, but our investment advisory arm is comprised of fiduciaries, which means our obligation is to you, so you can enjoy your retirement with a little more income stability.
I'm in.
That's 2 out of 3.
This is Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
AAA, did you hear about the 6-foot-tall man that drowned on 4 foot on average stream?
Yeah, I did. That's pretty amazing. How could that happen? Well, how could that happen? I heard about it.
It goes back to what you said at the beginning of the show. Figures don't lie, but liars figure. Right? I mean, that's what averages can do. Averages trick us, right?
Right.
Averages really can throw people off. And so we were talking about a real world example. So Sally invested her $1 million in the thing that always goes up, the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
S&P 500 in 1999. And
you say that too seriously, Daniel. People that don't know you are going to think that you're saying that you believe that.
Over long periods of time, but our lives are not the long periods of time people talk about, right? And that's what Sally found out, because she invested $1 million into the S&P 500 in 1999. And she said, well, markets average 9% a year. So if I take $60,000 out a year, I'll be fine.
That's what you would think from that angle.
And Jake said, I don't like markets. My parents, invested in 1928, and it wasn't until the 50s till they got back to even. And I don't want to touch that. I do not want to touch that at all. I'm going to invest in fixed instruments that pay me 6.5%. So Sally went for 9, Jake went for 6.5. Both $1 million, and both retired at the same time and decided they were going to take $60,000 a year out of their portfolio.
Wow. Okay.
So the first year, Jake's portfolio was still $1 million. He took 60 out and is basically still $1 million.
Okay.
Where Sally's was 1.1.
Whoa.
Pretty good. The difficulty came in when Sally didn't ever decide to switch her mindset from the 401k brain.
Yeah.
Because as we went into the tech bubble crash, her portfolio cut in half.
Ouch.
And she kept taking, she didn't make adjustments. She kept taking $60,000 withdrawals. In 2008, she had $11,000 left in her $1 million portfolio.
$11,000? Are you kidding me? Out of $1 million? In only 9 years. Whoa.
And Jake still had $1 million.
Wow.
They both took $60,000 a year out. And in 2009, Sally ran out of money and she had to go get a job at Walmart. Today, Jake still has just over $1 million in the portfolio and is continuing to take $60,000 a year out of the portfolio.
And Sally ran out of money before it ran out of life.
And that's where those averages trick us, because the S&P since 1999 has done right around 8%.
Average,
which is better,
right?
Average, which is better than the 6.5% Jake did.
Except the consistency is the problem.
That's the evil twin of dollar cost averaging. When you're taking the money out, any bad year, it's also called sequence of returns. It matters where markets are when you start drawing the money, when you start taking it out. If she had started at the bottom of the market, it would have been a different story. But we don't time, like right now, markets are high. Some people think they'll go higher. Some people think they'll go lower. But if you're retiring right now, you know that it's higher in all metrics than it was in the bottom of the tech bubble crash, or the bottom of the great financial crisis, or the bottom of COVID. So you know it's higher than a bottom. You just don't know where it is. And that's why it's absolutely vital to switch from that 401k brain of that growth to that distribution, or that pay me model that you always talk about, AAA. One is a hope-based model. I hope I can retire. And the other is based off of contracts and income.
And I can retire, right?
I can retire.
I can retire. Yeah, exactly. Wow. That is really something, Daniel, with those two things, right? And that's why in 2008 and 9, there were a lot of people that were scheduled to retire that didn't, because their account values went down. Their people had to go back to work at that point because their income, or they had to stop some of the trips that they did, or stop going seeing the grandkids, or stop buying new cars because their assets change. And so I agree with you, Daniel, that's not an option for our clients. And to me, the ideal retirement is having more than enough income to do all the things you want to do in life and more for the rest of your life. Well, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is 401k brain to retirement brain. Live off your wealth rather than on it. And we have a white paper that we'd like to give you folks today in our listening audience called Bonds versus Bond Funds. Understanding paper losses versus real losses. And this will help you understand this concept a little bit more of this evil twin of reverse dollar cost averaging. And if you have mutual funds in your portfolio, you really need to take a look at it. It's one thing, especially your retirement portfolio, because, there's fees, there's expenses to those. They're really, they're ease. They're the disease of ease, and you pay for easy. And so we'd love to be able to give you this paper for free, Bonds versus Bond Mutual Funds, by calling us at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for your free copy of Bonds versus Bond Funds. You listen to Financial Strategies because people don't know what people don't know. Daniel, I love the idea of retirement of reliable income, right? Where we don't, you can just depend upon that check hitting your bank account every month, right? Just like you did with your paycheck. When people retire, it's not that they need $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million. What they need is a paycheck that's coming in, and ideally from, off the wealth rather than from the wealth, right? So meaning that, just like interest and dividends or the eggs that the chickens lay, it's a beautiful picture, I think. So what are some reliable tools and the power of income investing, Daniel, that we can get involved with to accumulate wealth, right? Especially when you're in and close to retirement, right? Somebody switches from accumulation to distribution. So many people are afraid that they do what Jake did and go to a 6.5. They're not going to be able to make any money before retirement, right? If retirement's 2, 3, 5 years away, they're afraid, FOMO, right? Fear of missing out on what the stock market might do, right? But at least they're positioned well, so they're a lesser risk than what the stock market is. So how does all that come together?
Well, you worked so hard over your life to accumulate the wealth. So you got that $1 million that Jake has, and you can say, do I want to be involved with these big up and big down? Maybe one year you get $300,000. That feels pretty good. A year the market does 30%. I think last year maybe it did 24%. So you made $240,000. That feels pretty good, right? Jake would have just went ahead and got 65, but then he knows he's going to get 65,000 the next year and the next year and the next year. But the point here is you've accumulated the wealth already. You're already rich. Yeah. So as we talked about at the beginning, when you're starting out, your volatility doesn't matter so much. You got $20,000 in your 401k. If it cuts in half, you get $10,000. It doesn't make a difference to your portfolio. You're not retiring either way. You got $1 million and it cuts in half. Now you have $5 million. You can't retire now. It's just that simple, right? So that's why switching from 401k brain, and that's packing money away, dollar cost averaging, to retirement brain, which is let me go sit on the beach and let my assets pay me. Let me go spend time with my grandkids, take them fishing, and let my assets pay me. Let me take my family on an excursion and let my assets pay me. Right? That's the difference between the two brains, and that's why it's so important. So you're talking about 10 years before you retire. Mm-hmm. You want to start switching that model to a more pay me type model, more certain model. And that's because you don't have to deal with these drawdowns anymore.
Right. Exactly. And, I hear so many times people will say, oh, I'm going to come see you when I turn 65, Andrew, when I'm ready to retire. And it's like, no. If we work on this now, you'll be in much better shape. I remember the one client of ours who came like that. Well, he came and he said, I want to retire now and I need this much money. And I said, well, could you give me a year or two? Because I could do really well. And he said, no, I need it now. And it has worked out phenomenally for him. Right. But the more time we have, the better we can do. And people are afraid, well, I'm going to lose out on the market. Well, if you did make money in the market, which, obviously you may not, but even best case scenario is you do make money in the market. And then you bring it over and put it in distribution model, income pay me model, and you're not going to get any more than if you did the income model with that money 2 or 3 years, 5 years in it ahead of time, because that's going to be growing, over that period of time, and giving you, when you buy chickens, you get the eggs. You don't need the eggs. You take the eggs. We buy more chickens. We buy more chickens. What do we get? More eggs, and then we do it again the following year, and we do it again the following, and pretty soon you got a whole much more eggs. It's beautiful.
Right, because the income you can increase by more than the growth. So even if you had 10 and 20% growth years, which is huge for S&P, you can get income increases of 10 to 25%, but on a guarantee basis or a promise basis, depending on which direction you want to go, income basis. And that's going to do way more for you, especially because we're in a high interest rate environment. And if 3 years they cut rates, you're already locked into these higher rates.
And I'm going to speak to, if you're one of our clients in our listening audience today, listen to our podcast, anywhere that you listen to podcast, or maybe you're listening to it while it's playing on the radio, or maybe you're getting it from our website, whatever the case may be. Daniel just mentioned where you might make double-digit increases every year in your retirement income. And what's that talking about, guys? You hear me say this to you all the time. That's like if your employer said, hey, we're going to give you a 10% raise this year. You'd be like all over the place. Well, that's what Daniel's talking about for your retirement, giving you a 10% raise. And sometimes we've seen, typically for our clients, it's been double digit. Well, that means it's 10%, 11%, 12%. We've seen 20%, 34%. 30%, 40% raises in people's income, and then doing a similar thing the next year. So if you did 20% one year in increase and 10% the next year, if you have $1,000, you get a 20% increase in $1,000 a month. It becomes $1,200 a month. And the next year, if you get another 10% increase, it's $1,320 a month. So you're $320 a month more than when you started 2 years later. I mean, who wouldn't take that in a paycheck? That's what we're talking about. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is 401k brain to retirement brain. Live off your wealth, not on your wealth. And I want to talk about, Daniel, the differences in those two brains, right? One is that bottom line number versus what they can actually get. And you know what I'm talking about, how we see that all the time. So we're going to
should use it.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that bottom line 401k brain stuff. But I want to offer you and our listening audience this checklist. We have a real cool checklist. It's called the Retirement Readiness Checklist, right? Because so many people say, can I retire? When can I retire? These kinds of things. And like Daniel said, some people say, I hope I can retire. But then other people say, I'm going to retire, right? And how do you know? Well, this checklist, are you ready for retirement? We've got this checklist for you. Simple one-page checklist. Actually, I'm sorry, it's 2 pages. That is beautiful for you to be able to use to understand where you stand. You can ask for it by name. Just ask for a checklist when you call us at 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616 for your free copy of the Retirement Readiness Checklist. Call now for that, 800-725-7616. And we're going to talk about the bottom line versus the income.
Important financial question. Are you feeling confident that you have enough money saved to enjoy a stress-free retirement?
Honestly, I'm not sure.
That's where Retirement Income Source's investment advisory arm comes in. We exist to help you invest your money smartly.
I'm struggling to accept my retirement without a steady paycheck. So can you help me invest into a profitable revenue plan?
Absolutely. We have top advisors nationwide who have a fiduciary obligation to you, helping you generate retirement income.
You're locked on to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
And we're back with Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. And today's topic is 401k brain to retirement brain. Live off your wealth, not on your wealth. And Daniel, 401k brains, you know what they're always interested in? It is. It's the bottom line mentality. 30, 40 years, they've been looking at the bottom line of their retirement account, right? And it's been bringing adrenaline rush to them, right? And they love to see that go up, especially guys, right? Because guys are so interested in the rush of it all, right? But that, when you get in and close to retirement, it switches. It's not as important, the bottom line, because the bottom line is essentially for the kids or whoever's going to inherit it. But, we know on our reports, on our summaries for our clients, we have a second line that is more important which is retirement income, right?
Retirement paycheck.
Retirement paychecks, right?
Collect.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about. Switching from the I'm going to call it the right-hand side bottom line approach to the left-hand side paycheck approach. And so that is key. In retirement, you need a paycheck. And how are you going to get your paycheck? Most people don't have pensions, or if you do, it's not huge. You need to depend upon your own assets besides Social Security. Daniel, we were talking about, that one client of ours who started off with saying, hey, he only needed 60 grand or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Right?
It's so funny because usually people don't talk about what they need to live off of. They usually want to talk about that bottom line you're talking about. That's right. Typically what people say when they say, how much do I need to retire? Almost everyone's asking what that bottom line is. And this guy, for whatever reason, wasn't doing that. And he was one of our younger clients at the time. And business owner, was just throwing it out there. If you guys could get me, I think it was 80 at the time, $80,000 a year, I'd be happy. And now I think he's double that, if not triple that on income, but he's still working. So the point is he could double retire if he wanted to at this point in time. But it's
double
just
retire.
There. Yeah, it's
right.
just there. He could retire and get a pay increase than work, and it's just there. He's got that, not the bottom line, the paycheck line. It's there ready for him whenever he says, I don't want to work anymore, and he can see that right there on the report, and it's double what he wanted. So that's one of the things people need to do. If you're within 10 years or in retirement, you have to decide, nobody else can do this for you. How much do you want a year? And then you work from there. Don't think about 401k brain. I need $2 million of my 401k, $3 million.
No.
Think about it the other way around. How much do you want to live off of? What's a good life? What's a good retirement? What's a good lifestyle?
Right. There's what you need in retirement and what you want in retirement. How I define that is what you need in retirement is what you need to sit on the couch and watch TV all day long. And what you want in retirement is what you want, what you want to go, you want to go to Australia and you want to do some other traveling, and we want to pay for your kids, not just your grandkids' college education, but your grandkids, private school while they're going through primary school and everything like that, or whatever the case may be, right? And that's what you want to do. I've got this sign on my desk. What could you do if you knew you couldn't fail, right? And so the question is, what would you pay for if you knew you had the money to pay for it?
Yeah.
And
say that again. That's so powerful. Say that again.
What could you pay for if you knew you had the money to pay for it? That's a great thing. I should just add that to when we're doing the retirement risk report for people and asking them what they want. What would you do? What would you pay for? What would you spend money on if you knew you had more than enough money to spend money on that thing? We have one client that his wife wants to fly first class, and he says, I don't want to fly first class. Even if I can afford it, I don't want to fly first class. She can fly up front and I'll fly in the back. Everybody's different, right? So I don't begrudge him or nothing, but anyway, the point is that how you look at this stuff. And Daniel, it's very important, right, that people understand, what they're wanting to do. They don't even have to put a number on it, right? If they get the right advisor, the advisor will help them put a number on it, right? Yeah. But at least if they can, but nobody can answer what they want to do in retirement. But, they need to be able to get their money with somebody that's going to handle it the way that they want to do it according to their definitions. So many times people come in and I'll say, all right, are you a conservative investor or aggressive investor? They'll say, well, I'm a conservative at this point. Compared to what I was when I was 30 years old, I'm conservative now. Okay, I say, okay, how much do you think should be in the stock market right now versus the universe of other investments, right, that can get you income and pay you? And they'll say something like 10%. And then I look at their portfolio. And then I ask them another question, which is, okay, so what do you think the market's going to do from here? Market goes up, market goes down. From here, right, during your retirement, what do you think it's going to do? And some people say, well, go up. And some people say, well, I don't trust his administration or whatever, right? So, if it's going to be stuck in the muck, that's another thing. But people will say, well, I think 10% should be in the market. Then I look at their portfolio and I find that 90% is in the market. It's upside down. And they say, whoa, I told my advisor I wanted it to be conservative. I said, yeah, it's just, you're using the same word, but just a different definition of that word. You mean, when you say conservative, you mean down here, you mean not losing any principal. Make as much as you can make without losing principal. But he's saying, well, I don't know what they're saying. They're saying the conservative end of aggressive, where you can make money, but you can lose money. And generally speaking, that category loses money more than it makes money, from my perspective. And it's a different of definitions. Just like, any of you out there who are parents when your kids were 15, 16 years old. Hey, Sally, are you done cleaning your room? Hey, Johnny, are you done with your homework? Yeah, Dad, I'm done. Yeah, Mom, I'm done. And then you go to check it and it's like, whoa, this is not my definition of done, right? Same word, different definition. I'm Andrew Agemy. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. And today we're talking about 401k brain versus retirement brain. Live off your wealth, not on it. And today we have we have a book that we love to give you to be able to help educate you further. We're all about serving people by educating them to be able to make smart, wise decisions. Just like a CEO of a corporation, they're the CEO of their portfolios, and the responsibility is on you to make good decisions. Because how many bad advisors does it take to ruin somebody's portfolio? One. So the onus is on you. And so we want to help you to be good stewards and to be able to make good decisions. So this book we have is by our friend David Scranton, who is a CFP, Certified Financial Planner, Master's in Financial Services, Master of Science in Financial Services. He's written several books now. I don't know. I think he's got about 5 books out now, 5, maybe 6 books. But this one was his third book, called Return on Principle. Maybe it was his second. I'm sorry, I lose track. The Return on Principle, 7 core values help protect your money in good times and bad. And David does a masterful job in this book to be able to help you understand in the simple terms, not industry language, what it takes. He's an effective communicator for what it takes to be able to put you in good shape and help you have the retirement brain rather than a 401k brain. And you can call 800-725-7616 for your free copy. The first 5 first-time callers, 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616. Daniel, so, with this, right, people need to know what their paycheck, how much they need, and they need to understand, is their advisor using the same definitions that they are?
So clarify your goals, right? Clarify your goals. What are you aiming for? What do you want? When do you want to retire? And what does retirement look like? Is it flying first class AAA? Is it spending time on the beach? Is it picking up a hobby? But that's what you need, because then that advisor, whoever you're working with to help you with that, can help you get there. Right. And if they are using words like funds and maybe and
running out of money at 93 years old.
Then you might have the wrong person helping you, because if they're not using income focused, right, paychecks, things like that, then they're probably geared to help people in the accumulation state in the 401k brain. If they're using what you said, income words, paychecks, things like that, not spending down principal,
less
not
risk,
selling assets. Yeah, exactly. Conservative, things like that. Then you're probably with a good person, right, a good advisor.
Right. And like, you had said when we were talking, right, if you want to go for broke and go for performance and see the highest returns, well, get a guy, a gal whose philosophy, right? Because if you get a conservative person, you're not going to be happy. So don't waste your time. Don't waste their time. Yeah. So line yourself up, know what kind of investor that you are, and line yourself up with that kind of advisor to be able to help you do that. And, just to let you know, 95% of professional financial people out there are some form of that. So, you got a big part to look for. If you're looking for that needle in the haystack, well, that's going to be harder, and they are out there. And Daniel, that was kind of funny talking about that, right? These clients came in today. They're not clients, I'm sorry, people that came to one of our workshops. They're not clients. And, they were just, they got information and they said, we're just starting this thing. And I said to one of my team members, they don't know, but they got a needle in the haystack in the first try and they don't know it, and
that happened to me one time, AAA. It's hard. It's hard because I'm looking for beautiful land, right? I'm looking for the perfect spot with the string, and we come across the perfect one on the first thing. We have no idea it's the perfect one, right? It had everything. And then a few years later, after checking out a lot of spots, it's like, oh man, I should have went with that first. Because you don't know. You don't know, right?
You don't know what you don't know. But the egregious thing is when you don't want to know what you don't know. And that's why we love having you join us on Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. And Daniel, what else do we need to put together when we're talking about
clarify those goals? Align your plan with someone who can help you. If that's your advisor, if that's you, because you have taken the classes needed to understand these types of things. You understand how to generate income, whatever that is, but make sure that you're aligned. If you're going for growth and risk, listen to the words your advisors are saying. They'll tell you a lot about them in just the words that they use. Just like when we talk with clients or we talk with people who want advice, we know a lot about them from the words that they're using. Right. It doesn't matter what they're saying, but the words people use, you can tell a lot about them. So listen to the actual words that are being used. And then don't settle for 401k brain or dead brain. And that's what you talk about all the time, AAA, disease of ease. If it's just a bunch of funds, you're just collecting funds to have funds, right?
And not having fun.
And not having fun. They all do the same things. You deserve a personalized income plan, right? Something that doesn't have an 85% chance of working, something that's not going to run out of money when you're 90, a customized plan for you based upon those first two things, where you're aligned and what your goals are.
Yeah. I mean, we are all individuals. We all can drive the cars we want to drive and dress the way that we want to dress. And that's a beautiful thing about being an American, right? And we can go to restaurants we want to go to and all these other things, right? We're individuals. Yeah. So why in the world would anybody want a cookie cutter portfolio if they're an individual for their retirement, right?
I know. It's going to last you 30, 40 years minimum.
Right. So folks, look at that and get rid of the 401k brain and move to a retirement brain and get an individualized, customized portfolio that fits you, that's wholesale rather than retail, and will work well for you. So you've been listening to that Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy. Daniel in Denver, Andrew Agemy in Connecticut, and we are loving coming talking to you. Sorry that we're wrapping up this show for today, but we have something we'd like to give you. This is very special. It's called the RRR, Retirement Risk Report. Many people say, hey, when can I retire? Can I retire? Well, this Retirement Risk Report, Retirement Readiness Report, will help you understand exactly that. It will go through the things that Daniel was talking about today in regard to looking at what you need to retire, what you want to retire, your definitions, and finding out what your definitions are, and matching everything up to your risk, your definitions, not some checklist that Wall Street has put together for you that skews the things that to do it along their definitions. It would be your definition. So we if you would have any interest in having a RRR, Retirement Readiness Report, prepared for you, call us so we can have a discussion about that and explain to you more in more detail what that's about. 800-725-7616. Call us now at 800-725-7616, and operators are on call, as well as agemy.com, AGEMY.com, and you can also listen to this show or other shows anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So we love having you join us, and until next week, I hope you that think more about, if you want your retirement to be invest free, invest for the I more than the G.